A US Navy SEAL has been acquitted of committing war crimes in Iraq. Special Operations Chief Edward Gallagher has been accused of fatally stabbing an ISIL prisoner in 2017. A military jury in California heard he had posed for a photograph with the body. Heavy rain has prompted an evacuation order for more than 700,000 people in Kagoshima on Japan's southern island of Kyushu. People have been ordered to seek shelter at emergency centres with warnings of flooding and landslides. Pro-Beijing politicians in Hong Kong say it could cost around $1.3 million to repair the legislature building, which was ransacked by protesters. Police have declared it a crime scene as the clean-up continues. A special task force has been set up to look into mass protests, most of which were peaceful. They were triggered by a controversial bill which would allow extradition to mainland China. Mexico's foreign ministry says the number of migrants apprehended at the US border has gone down by 30%. It cited the US Customs and Border Protection Agency. Data shows a decrease between the months of May and June. US border agents detained 100,000 migrants last month. Those are headlines. The news continues after Inside Story.
In Malaysia, plans to abolish the death penalty are dividing the community. With more than 1,200 prisoners on death row, 101 East investigates. On Al Jazeera.
The hunt for whales. Japan has resumed commercial whaling in its waters despite global outrage. But is the practice commercially sustainable? And what are the cultural roots of whaling in Japan? And is culture a justification? This is Inside Story. Hello and welcome to the programme. I'm Peter Dobby. Whales were hunted to the brink of extinction until 1986, when a group of countries agreed to temporarily stop whaling for profit, which turned into a semi-international ban. However, conservationists are now worried the species might be facing a similar threat. Many countries continue to hunt whales for what they say are scientific purposes. And Japan, which is one of the leading commercial whaling countries, has now resumed that practice in its waters. It says whaling is part of its culture and can be done in a sustainable way. But as Mariana Hond explains, Japanese palates and tastes have moved on.
For more than 30 years, the International Whaling Commission has been locked in a fight. Its job is to protect whales pushed close to extinction. Yet 3 countries, Norway, Iceland and Japan, have pursued the right to hunt them. Late last year, Japan argued there was scientific proof some species had recovered enough to allow sustainable hunting, and it pushed again for the 1986 ban on commercial whaling to be lifted. When the Whaling Commission rejected Japan's proposal, Japan withdrew. Japan says it will only hunt in its territorial waters, not the open seas of the Antarctic and North Pacific, where it has, until now, been hunting for scientific research. And it's not clear whether there'll even be a market in Japan for the whale meat the ships bring to shore. Consumption in Japan has plummeted from around 200,000 tonnes each year in the 60s to just 5,000 tonnes each year over the last 5. That could be due to the changing tastes of a new generation, but changing attitudes to hunting whales are likely a factor too. And things at the International Whaling Commission will be different. Japan's departure has arguably left it weakened, but after a more than 3-decade fight over commercial whaling, it's now free to concentrate on what it was originally formed to do. Commercial whaling is now back on the list of threats to the world's whales. But there too is a climate crisis that's already adversely impacting the oceans and marine life within them. A looming threat that could well eclipse them all.
OK, let's get going. Let's bring in the panel. Joining us today from Southampton in the UK, Ken Collins, Senior Research Fellow in Ocean and Earth Sciences at the Faculty of Environmental and Life Sciences at the University of Southampton. In Tokyo, Michael Penn, President of Japan's Shingetsu News Agency, and in Bristol, also in the UK, Mark Simmons, Senior Marine Expert at the Humane Society International. Welcome to you all. Michael Penn in Tokyo. First time in 31 years, more than 3 decades. What's the point?
Well, the point basically is to keep a political constituency happy. There are some small towns along the coast in Japan where the economy is largely based on whaling, and these small towns have political politicians who represent them, and they are influential politicians. So it's more a matter of the fact that there's a lobby on one side of the issue in Japan, but not really on the other. And the pro-whaling side, politically, is stronger.
Ken Collins, is it enough to say it's cultural?
Well, potentially, yes, but I question that there is the demand. And the one thing that avoids much attention is the fact there is a considerable culling of small cetaceans which are outside, such as dolphins, porpoises, which are outside of any international treaties.
Mark Simmons in Bristol, does this give the government a longer-term exit strategy because they can get away from the situation of subsidising what is, you know, when it comes to profit and loss, what is a very expensive industry to maintain?
This is a very strange situation that we're now in. We've had decades of argument with Japan about its scientific whaling. And now it's turned from that to this overt form of commercial whaling, and it's stepped outside of the IWC. And that's put it in a position where detractors can turn around and say that you're